One man, one vision, and a war that would change the world forever. How did a failed artist become the architect of history's deadliest conflict? This is the terrifying journey of Adolf Hitler, from obscurity to absolute power and to ultimate destruction. On April 20, 1889, in a small Austrian town called Braunau am Inn, a child was born who would grow up to plunge the world into darkness. His name was Adolf Hitler, a boy from a broken household, haunted by a harsh father and protected by a loving mother. From an early age, Hitler was drawn to German nationalism, even though he wasn't German by birth. He dreamed of becoming an artist, but was twice rejected by the Academy of Fine Arts in Vienna. With each failure, bitterness took root, growing like a poison. As Europe marched towards war, Hitler saw a chance to escape obscurity. When World War I broke out in 1914, Hitler enlisted in the German army, full of excitement and blind devotion. He served bravely on the Western Front, earning 2 Iron Crosses for courage, but never rising above corporal. The war gave him purpose, but Germany's defeat in 1918 shattered him. When the Treaty of Versailles blamed Germany for the war and demanded crushing reparations, Hitler didn't just feel humiliated, he felt betrayed. This was the moment a dangerous ideology began to take shape. After the war, Hitler joined a small fringe group called the German Workers' Party. Through fiery speeches filled with hatred, nationalism, and anti-Semitism, he quickly rose to prominence. In 1920, it became the National Socialist German Workers' Party, better known as the Nazi Party. Hitler wasn't just a speaker, he was a hypnotist of crowds. In 1923, he led a failed coup known as the Beer Hall Putsch and was thrown into prison. But prison became his platform. There, he wrote Mein Kampf, a manifesto of hatred, and his blueprint for the future. After his release, Hitler set out not to seize power by force, but to win it legally. Germany was in crisis. Unemployment was soaring, inflation was rampant, and people were desperate. The Nazis promised hope, pride, and strength, and the people listened. By 1932, Hitler's Nazi Party was the largest in the Reichstag. He demanded to be chancellor, and in January 1933, he got his wish. The moment Hitler entered office, democracy began to die. A mysterious fire at the Reichstag was blamed on communist Sit became the excuse to crush all opposition. The Enabling Act gave Hitler absolute power. No more debate, no more votes, only his voice mattered now. Opponents were arrested, the press was silenced, and concentration camps were born. By 1934, after eliminating rivals during the Night of the Long Knives, Hitler declared himself Führer Supreme Leader of Germany. With absolute power in his hands, Hitler set out to shape a new Germania Nazi Germany. He rewrote textbooks, trained children in Hitler Youth, and turned schools into factories of ideology. Propaganda minister Joseph Goebbels painted Hitler as Germany's savior. Posters, radios, film saws sang the same tune, "The Führer is always right." Jews, Roma, communists, and anyone who didn't fit the Aryan ideal were dehumanized, labeled enemies of the state. The Nuremberg Law stripped Jews of citizenship, jobs, and dignity. Fear, loyalty, and hate became the building blocks of Hitler's empire. Hitler didn't just want to rule Germany, wanted to rebuild a German empire. In 1936, he remilitarized the Rhineland, violating the Treaty of Versailles. The world stayed silent. Next came Austria. In 1938, Hitler annexed it without a bullet fired. It was called the Anschluss. Then came the Sudetenland from Czechoslovakia. Britain and France, desperate to avoid another war, gave in. But Hitler wasn't done. He wanted Poland next. On September 1, 1939, German tanks rolled into Poland. 2 days later, Britain and France declared war. World War II had begun. Hitler introduced the world to a terrifying new tactic, Blitzkrieg, or lightning war. Fast-moving tanks, mechanized infantry, and overwhelming airstrikes crushed enemies before they could react. Poland fell in weeks, then Denmark, Norway, Belgium, the Netherlands, and finally France. By mid-1940, Hitler controlled most of Western Europe. He turned his eyes to Britain, but the Royal Air Force stood firm during the Battle of Britain. Then came his biggest mistake, invading the Soviet Union in June 1941. The vastness of Russia, the harsh winter, and Soviet resistance would bleed Germany dry. While war raged across continents, Hitler waged another warone of genocide. The Holocaust was the systematic murder of 6 million Jews and millions more Roma, disabled, Poles, and others. Ghettos were built, people deported, and death camps like Auschwitz operated day and night. Trains packed with innocent souls arrived daily, few left alive. This was not war. This was industrialized murder, driven by hate and racism. The world would later ask, how could humanity allow this to happen? By 1943, Hitler's empire began to crumble. The Soviets pushed back at Stalingrad, Germany's first major defeat. In North Africa, Rommel's forces fell. In Italy, Mussolini was overthrown. Then, in 1944, Allied forces landed in Normandy Day. Hitler was trapped between East and West. He retreated to his underground bunker in Berlin, isolated and delusional. As Soviet forces closed in, he married Eva Braun, and the next day on April 30, 1945, they both committed suicide. His body was burned in a shallow pit. The man who wanted to rule the world ended his life in fear and defeat. When the dust settled, 60 million people were dead, cities reduced to rubble, nations broken. Germany was divided. The world had changed forever. At the Nuremberg trials, Nazi leaders were held accountable for crimes against humanity. The Holocaust became the darkest chapter in modern history. The United Nations was born to prevent another world war, but the scars of Hitler's legacy run deep. Adolf Hitler left behind more than destruction, he left behind a warning. A warning about the danger of unchecked power, blind nationalism, and the silence of good people. He was one man, but his words moved millions. His lies destroyed nations. History must not forget, because forgetting means repeating. And the world cannot afford another Adolf Hitler. Thank you for watching this deep dive into the rise and fall of Adolf Hitler. If you found this video powerful and informative, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. History lives on not just in books, but in our choices today.